Good morning, folks. Everything new under the sun. This is October 8th, 2019, and I want to do a longer video about Yom Kippur, and we will do a video about that. Possibly I'll try and get one out tonight. There's just so much news happening right now in terms of Middle East war, economic collapse, martial law in the United States, all sorts of odd stuff going on in the United States alone. And so I think I don't want to dilute a Yom Kippur video where we take a look at the prophetic influence of that with a whole bunch of other stuff. So I want to go back and take a look at some of the very interesting things that are happening. So this is one of the slides from my keynote presentation about the timeline of the return of the Lord. And it talks about the start of the 7-year period, tribulation. When do sacrifices begin? This one attempts to show the date from which the red heifer was born and will be ready, 3 years. And it will be ready September 1st of the year 2021. Now that could be plus or minus a couple of years. But the red heifer is ready to be burned on an altar, so that the ashes of the red heifer can purify the instruments that they will use in the third temple. And so they have a red heifer ready. So this is one of these things that is ready. Red heifer born September 2018. Like I say, some articles say 2 years old. Other articles say 3 years old. Somewhere in there. Key is that a red heifer is ready for the rebuilding of the temple. On top of that, what I want to take a look at is a closer look at the actual timeline here. And we have a lot of things converging. So if you look at the Ezekiel 38 Gog-Magog war, if the signs for that seem to be right now, today, happening and on the table, then how close are we to the other items, the economic collapse, Isaiah 17, destruction of Damascus? How close are we? I think we're very, very close to each of them. But I want to present to you today information that it appears that we are on the cusp of Ezekiel 38 being fulfilled. Not only from the standpoint of the Middle East, but also from the standpoint of the United States, which is, for all intents and purposes, almost ready to declare and take the position that they're not going to back up Israel. And in Ezekiel 38 and 39, we really see no countries coming to the aid of Israel. And the U.S. is the obvious country. It's the world superpower, world strongest army. And there's no willingness by the Trump administration, let alone any other president or administration. There's no willingness by the Trump administration, which you would figure would be the most pro-Israel, and in a lot of cases he is. But there's no willingness to go to war. He doesn't want to go to war with Iran. He is pulled out of northern Syria. I think the news along that line will demonstrate to you that the U.S. doesn't want to go to war in the Middle East. They don't want to get involved. They want Israel to handle it. They want to leave it to Israel. Israel can be, the master of its own destiny, and that's exactly what Ezekiel 38 and 39 describes. A world where no country is going to back up Israel. No country is going to come to the aid. And this is part of God's plan, so that God can show His power, and again miraculously protect Israel from total destruction. So this is coming, and I think Ezekiel 38 and 39 is just around the corner. There's a lot of significant news. Let's take a look at the articles here for the day. This is jpost.com. Let me see. Let me scroll up here. No, right there. So the headline news here is Iran could attack Israel just as it did Saudi oil fields, says Gallant. Look at the other headlines. Kurdish militia in Syria likely to join Assad and Putin. So the U.S. was aligned with the Kurdish military and militias. And with Turkey going in there, Turkey wants to wipe out the Kurds. Turkey doesn't like the Kurds. So the Kurdish militia now is going to join with Assad and join with Putin. This is the suggestion. Syrian sources claim Turkey attacked in Iraq and not Syria. And so people were saying they were all of a sudden bombing, Turkey was, the Kurds in northern Syria. Now news articles are coming out and saying, well, no, they actually attacked in Iraq. And look at the bottom one. After Trump abandons Kurds, Israel knows it cannot rely on anybody. Israel now knows that when Gog-Magog occurs, they will not be able to ask the United States to help. And what do we see in Ezekiel 38? We see the young lions of Tarshish saying, have you come to take a spoil? Let's just go to that article because I think that's important here. Let's see. Ezekiel 38. We'll just read the text of that real quick. All right, here it is. Safari. Let's see. Sheba and Dedan and the merchants of Tarshish, with all the young lions, the offspring of Britain, and most scholars agree, therefore shall say unto thee, art thou come to take a spoil? Hast thou gathered thy company to take a prey, to carry away silver and gold? That speaks to me like an economic collapse just happened. Or there is a country that just came in to take away all the goods and the riches that Israel has, to take away cattle and goods, to take a great spoil. So Israel just found more oil, more natural gas. They are hugely rich. They're hugely blessed by God. They produce a ton of fruit and flowers, and they actually export a lot of that to the rest of the world. And so these invading countries, this alliance that comes in, Gog-Magog, is coming to take away money, food, and energy. You can see that. Money, silver and gold, food, the cattle, and energy, I would suggest to you, is the great spoil. You take the SP off spoil, and of course you get oil. And this is speaking of what the nations around Israel are saying when Gog-Magog occurs, when they invade the land of unwalled villages. What do the rest of the countries of the world say? And so this article is speaking about it. Iran could use a combination of cruise missiles and advanced drones to attack Israel, in a manner similar to the way it attacked Saudi oil fields last month, says Yoav Gallant. A Major General Gallant was one of a number of Israel's Security Cabinet members who took to the airwaves this week to discuss the threat from Iran. So they're coming out and stating that Iran is a threat and we will protect ourselves. This is coming out. This is significant. This is kind of alert level news where these leaders are coming out and saying there is a threat to the public. They're almost getting the public ready to know that there is a threat, and that the IDF is ready to defend the country. It says, Gallant said he would not speculate on the likelihood of such an attack. He noted that if Iran could shoot in one direction at Saudi Arabia from hundreds of kilometers away, it could also shoot in another direction at Israel from hundreds of kilometers away. He says, we are looking at what is happening around us. And so significant hostilities in the region. I think Saudi Arabia attack was a great test run of Iranian cruise missiles. And now Iran knows it can get past at least some air defenses. And they could volley a number of cruise missiles at Israel. And Israel may not be able to defend against it if enough was shot at Israel. And so we know there will be some sort of a preemptive strike on Iranian missile factories, Iranian forward positions, etc. Because that seems to be spoken of in Isaiah 17, the prophecy of the destruction of Damascus. This is a city which has been around, for 2,000 years or longer. It's one of the longest never destroyed cities in the world, and the Bible speaks of it being destroyed, becoming a ruinous heap, Isaiah 17, at some point. And so that is likely Israel destroying the city, because Iran has effectively taken it over, and there's a military base there. And so in order to defend itself against Iran, it needs to remove Iranian forward operating military bases, and that includes Damascus. And so they could do a significant strike on Damascus in an attempt to preempt, to get rid of the threat. But I think this will just trigger Ezekiel 38 and 39. Let's look at this article here, and I think this is another example. This is about economic collapse, but another reason why the U.S. may not be willing. The President Trump has already come out and said, he's not willing to get into war. The Middle East knows, Israel knows that Trump is not willing to get into war. They didn't retaliate against a cruise missile attack on Saudi Arabia. Why would they retaliate against any strike on Israel? That's the question. This is the Economic Collapse blog. The world is getting ready for an economic collapse. And this is kind of related to the call-up of the Marines. So there's stories going around about the call-up of the Marines. It's very strange, all these stories that are happening. I don't know what the answer is to it, but there was a specific call-up to reserves in support of the local police forces, it seems. And so what is that all about? I can't suggest that I know all the detail. BP Earthwatch is following it. Paul Begley is following it. The call-up of the Marines. And then you have other other articles. Let's see. This is one from Dave Hodges' The Common Sense Show. Now there's apparently massive purchases of hydrogen cyanide. So I don't know what to make of this. This is from October 7th. Suggests that there's FEMA camps, and they're going to use this gas to kill people in the FEMA camps. Again, is this a pure conspiracy? I don't know what to make of this. There's just a whole bunch of extra news coming out about this right now. There's also Marines saying, watch for, I think it's October 18th, when there will be an EAS signal, an emergency broadcast signal. Some say it's going to be a test. Others say they're going to actually implement martial law for a period. There's speak of a coup happening in the United States. Look at this article. This is from naturalnews.com. It's on the deep state plot to install Hillary Clinton as Prime Minister this year, 2019, bypassing elections altogether. It says the deep state Democrats have a plan to install Hillary Clinton as president of the United States. So is this real? Is this fake? Is this pure conspiracy? I don't know. But there's just a lot of different information coming out, and apparently real information about a reserve call-up of Marines in the United States. And then you have all these backstories of Marines saying, there's going to be implemented martial law this month, October, and also some emergency broadcasts happening. The White House also was on lockdown recently. So you have all these odd things going on where the U.S. is really pulling back and looking internally. Trump is pulling out of the Middle East and almost focusing inward as if something was about to happen in the United States. And it goes back to this financial collapse that I think is coming. The budget deficit rises to 26% in the United States in 1 year as federal spending spirals wildly out of control. So the Federal Reserve has now been printing money out of thin air, has been continually doing so. They were supposed to stop, I think it was October 1st, but they continued past that. The debt is now up to $23 trillion. I think it was Obama that increased it $8 trillion just in his 8-year period. We are in the process of committing national financial suicide. Most Americans don't seem to care. It says, as you will see below, the federal deficit for the fiscal year that ended September 30th was the largest in 7 years. In fact, it was actually 26% larger. Federal spending is wildly out of control. It says our national debt shortly will hit $23 trillion. It will never get paid off. And I've said that before. There's just too much debt now. There's no intention of actually paying this off. And you can see the trajectory. No government is actually coming in and cutting the deficit, let alone cutting the debt. And so this house of cards will come crashing down. This is one of the features one of the items that could be why the Marine reserve units were called up to support civilian defense and civilian police departments. Maybe when this economic collapse happens, maybe that's why Trump doesn't want to go to war in the Middle East, because something is happening in the United States, and they are getting ready, maybe getting set up for what it appears to be maybe an attempted, controlled financial collapse. And you have this coup attempt, this speculation, this conspiracy theory about coup attempts. You have the martial law being spoken of by other Marines. BP Earthwatch, I believe it was talking to 2 other Marines, speaking of some martial law being implemented, some emergency broadcast stuff happening October 18th. And there's some weird stuff happening. All of that in conjunction with this massive money printing. It seems to me that Trump is focusing inwards, seeing something coming down the line, a whole bunch of conspiracy theories going around, and trouble in the United States. And so this is just one example. And the economy is ripe for it. The world economy is ripe for an economic collapse. The governments don't want it. Trump doesn't want an economic collapse. He wants the economy to keep going. And of course, the Democrats are, pushing to collapse it, because they know if there's a recession, that's going to mean that Trump will lose the 2020 elections. And I said it before, years ago when Trump was elected, he's a great businessman. So if you wanted anybody at the helm of the United States for to have any chance of coming out of an economic collapse, it would be a business mind in that of Donald Trump. So if an economic collapse were to happen, he would be the best of the other choices to be in there when that occurs, to manage coming out of that. But it means that there will be no U.S. to back up Israel in the last days. And that's exactly what Ezekiel 38:39 seems to predict. It suggests that there won't be much left of the United States at all. And so they will be left basically in Ezekiel 38:39 saying, have you come to take a spoil? Speaking to the alliance, the Gog-Magog alliance that marches down. And they will not be backing up Israel at that point in time. And God will have to show his power and miraculously save them, Israel, from total destruction. So this is all going to come down. And all the news seems to add up to, I hesitate to say that something big is going to happen this year, but it certainly could. There's a whole bunch of weird news out there, so be prepared. I'm on high alert. This is a high alert time. This is the fall feast period. It's a high prophetic watch time for Christians, and you have all this news converging about coup attempts, Marine call-ups, martial law, economic collapse, trouble on the stock markets in October. And the deficit and the $23 trillion debt, and you have all this stuff happening. The Federal Reserve is printing money out of thin air as fast as it can right now, and there's trouble on the horizon. So let me see. I think that is kind of what I wanted to relay to you today. There's a bunch of strange stuff happening. And I think this, this is not just a high watch, but a super high prophetic watch period. I don't know exactly when this is going to go down, but boy, all things are converging right now. You look at all the websites, there's strange things happening all over. The fact that Trump doesn't want to go to war in the Middle East, the fact that they've pulled out of Syria, and now Turkey is in northern Syria and in Iraq doing bombing runs right now. The fact that Iran now feels that they have more strength and more ability to hit Israel without any sort of retaliation from the United States. The United States is pulling out, and there was no retaliation for the strike on Saudi Arabia. So Iran, I think, feels fully strengthened and allowed then to do a strike on Israel. And this is their stated goal, is to wipe Israel off the map. And in Bible prophecy, there will be no helping of any other nation, Israel, against these Gog-Magog attacks. So what are the next things? Look for maybe simultaneous economic collapse and Isaiah 17 strike on Damascus. The strike on Damascus then, I think, triggers the Gog-Magog alliance to say, all right, that's too far. We now have also the first punch thrown, so we now have the legal ability to march on Israel. And the United States isn't going to help because they have no interest in going to war, and there's economic trouble, and there's coup attempts going on, and there's martial law in the United States. And so we, Russia, Turkey, Iran, and other alliance members, can march on Israel. And this is when God's going to have to show his power and save Israel from total destruction. And I think this is coming down the pipe real quick. We're getting close to the 2021 timeline. And so if that is a real timeline, at the end of 6,000 years of man is the year 2028, then this stuff needs to start happening soon. And I think things are wound up very tight prophetically right now, ready to explode. And we're just looking for a trigger point. I don't know exactly what the timing is, but my goodness, this October, the month we are in right now, seems to be very interesting. So this is an alert video. I'm going to end it here. I'll put the links in the description. And hopefully I will also tonight do a video on Yom Kippur and the prophetic significance of it. But this is serious stuff, and there's very strange things happening right now. And you need to be prepared. You need to have your heart right with God. Recognize Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. The world's going to get, it's going to become a very, very tough place. There's going to be increased persecution. There's going to be increased trouble for Christians. Hard times are coming. Famines, pestilences, great wars in the world, great economic collapse and trouble. And famines may not just mean droughts. It may means no food because there is economic collapse and you can't buy food. And so this is a part of it. One of the bullet points in that keynote presentation is no mention of Western powers. So what happens to all the Western powers? Well, the only thing that could happen to all of them is a worldwide economic collapse, and I really think that is just around the corner. And with the strange news happening in the United States, the martial law, the Marine call-up to support civil defense authorities, etc., something's going on. And be prepared, watch out, make sure you know the Lord Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, because ultimately we're going to die, and this is the end of the world, and you need to be prepared for it. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video.